And welcome everybody to another episode of Fins Nation. I am your host Louis Sung, and today I am joined by Eric Wiedeke. You can find him on Twitter at Eric Wiedeke, just like how it's spelled. I'll spell it for you guys because I don't think people who are seeing this are only seeing the audio, so they don't have any idea how to spell that. It's EricWiedeke. I'm not going to give you the call letters because that's something that I learned from the census, and it seems that it follows me to work, but I feel like that's a little overkill. Mr. Eric, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today, Louis?
I'm doing fantastic. Miami Dolphins were victorious against the Washington Commanders 45-15. And I know that there were some people saying, "Oh, the Commanders, they sometimes they find a way to show up and prove themselves
Say
to be a
say
tougher
say
team to
it
get
say
rid
it,
of."
Louis. Say it, Louis.
What am I saying? I don't
Ethan was a coward.
Ethan was no, I'm not going to say
No,
Ethan was a coward.
I'm being tongue in cheek. I'm being
Oh,
completely
okay.
sarcastic for the record. Because
No,
he was the one that had the Commanders giving the Dolphins a fight.
I mean, but the thing is that the Commanders in the past have given teams fights
They
before.
they
It's
have
not,
they
it's
have.
not
I know
out
I
of the
know.
realm of possibility. But at the end of the day, I was looking at Miami and I'm looking at the Commanders and I'm thinking, no, no, because one team is very much good, and there's a reason they're 8-3, and there's another reason why the Commanders are 4-8. I'm sorry. Well, excuse me. Now the Dolphins are 9-3, and the Commanders are 4-9. So not a great look for the Washington Commanders right now. We're going to get into everything that happened, everything that we observed, everything that we thought as the game was happening. But before that, really quick, just want to go ahead and mention that as always, this show is brought to you by our good friends over at PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is a revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues, whether that is the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, one of each. It's up to you to decide. Just choose whether your chosen player will get more or less than their projected stat. They give you free squares, special Taco Tuesday promos, Flex Friday special where you can get your money back if you lose or multiply the amount of money you can normally win. So with offers like that, it's hard to justify not signing up if you are any kind of a fantasy sports fan. So use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. In the promo code 5, FIVE, go to prizepicks.com, deposit your $100, and let PrizePicks give you $100 of their dollars for you to play with and get started winning today. This show is now also affiliate sponsored by My Nintendo Store. So we're all gamers at heart. I truly believe that. And for a family that wants to be able to play some gaming, that's where Nintendo's been there for us for nearly 50 years, creating all-time classics that are remembered by every generation growing up. And right now, they have special deals going on for what are sure to be more top-selling games in Nintendo's endlessly long lineup. For instance, Super Mario RPG, a classic from the days of the Nintendo 64, has been completely remastered from the ground up and is now out and available for purchase ever since November 17th for new audiences to enjoy Mario's first ever RPG adventure. And also out right now, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, the Mario Bros. Latest completely new game that is already receiving rave reviews from both critics and actual gamers alike. Just click the links in the description below to order either of these awesome titles, and you'll be receiving bonus items upon making your purchase. I will have some new links coming up for you very soon. So Red Dead Redemption, I know, is going to be one of them that is going to be available for you guys to use the links in the description below. It also helps to support the channel when you do that. So again, click the links in the description below. Head to My Nintendo Store, your best and quickest gateway to the world of Nintendo. All right, Eric. So, due to circumstances beyond your control, you were not actually able to participate in the actual post game on the Five Reasons Sports Network that was live with me, Michael Quirk, and Ethan and Duke. So now I'm going to give you your opportunity. So everything that happened in that game, I want your full raw thoughts.
So my full raw thoughts are, and coming into this game, I had the thought because I was a big fan of the way that the offense looked against the Jets, just considering opponent. I know Tua had the two bad picks, but I was less focused on that and more so just focused on the process of the offense there. And so I kind of had the thought that, okay, I think the offense is starting to trend in the right direction. We know what the defense has done over the last few weeks. My thought is we are finally getting a Dolphins team that is peaking on both sides of the ball heading into December. In previous years, it was December is where the Dolphin season goes to die. And my first takeaway is that's not the case this year. These are not your father's Dolphins. This is a different Dolphins team, and I think we all need to kind of accept that. I know that for a lot of Dolphins fans, it's kind of a weird thought to kind of, not have that creeping, looming sense of doom in the back of their mind, but this team overall is different. You have Tua, who's playing really good football right now. Jalen Waddle is completely healthy between this week and what he did last week against the Jets. He's back at 100%. Devon Achon finally came back for real now in full force, and he played a heck of a game. He's going to be a factor down the stretch. It just feels like everything. This was the most complete performance on both sides of the ball, even including the 70-20 game against the Broncos. I feel like this was the most consistent performance on both sides of the ball all year long. Could not have been happier with how they did it. And they did it on the road in December in the cold, where the conditions, they weren't bad, but they weren't like the best either, considering the fog and the visibility, some of the things that were going on there. But again, it just goes towards, you want to be peaking at the right time, and I feel like this is a Dolphins team that is kind of starting to fire on all cylinders at the right time.
And it's a good thing too, because as you alluded to, this team, they're getting things going on both sides of the ball. That's very much true. I still personally feel like the Denver game was a better performance overall, just because of how utterly dominant it was. I can't dismiss it. I can't dismiss it. But
Fair.
I will say that overall, in a vacuum, I would say the defense played better today against the Commanders than they did against the Broncos. Now, to be fair, that this game was played with Jaylen Ramsey and the Broncos game was not. So that makes a heck of a difference when you have Jaylen Ramsey. We did not hear his name all game long. No, but I don't think was Jaylen Ramsey even targeted. Was the ball even thrown in his general direction all game? I don't even remember if that happened.
Once or twice.
Right. So, but it just goes to show you this combination of Jaylen Ramsey and Vic Fangio. I understand that everybody respects and knows who Jaylen Ramsey is as a superstar cornerback. But even a couple of years prior, teams would throw in Ramsey's direction. They would test Ramsey. All of a sudden, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the mythos of the Vic Fangio defense being, including with Jaylen Ramsey. No team wants to even remotely throw in his direction. Either the players that are throwing at Ramsey are so scared of making a mistake that they're just refusing to throw in that direction, or maybe he's just really that good. Maybe he's just covering up the guys that he's covering so bad that nobody even wants to even remotely take a shot at it. And if that's the case, great, wonderful, I'm perfectly fine with that. It makes it so that now Xavier Howard has more opportunities to try to get some more turnovers. I'm perfectly cool with that. But I will also say this. Losing Jerome Baker is going to be tough. Now, we will say that Mike McDaniel said in a press conference that he has a vibe that it is not a season-ending injury. I don't know what it means that he has a vibe. I don't know if he has a crystal
Did he
ball.
shake his magic 8-ball?
Yeah, right. I keep thinking to myself, like we saw, like he was clutching at his knee before he even stopped rolling. Like he was still on the ground moving, and he was already clutching at his knee. That did not look good. Now, maybe when he says, is it season ending, maybe he's just saying that they're going to keep Baker on the roster, just leave him there, and when the time comes, he's ready to go. If that is what they're planning, then okay, I get it. It's not like if anybody the Dolphins put on IR at this point, that's it. They can't bring anybody else back. As of right now, Dolphins are going to have to decide whether they want to bring back someone like Chris Brooks, or if they're going to bring back Isaiah Wynn, or if they want to bring back anybody else who's on IR. So they're going to have to be very careful about how they play this, because you cannot input Jerome Baker on injured reserve now. That's it.
They already opened up Brooks's window, no?
They opened up his window, but that doesn't mean they necessarily have to bring him back from injured reserve.
Oh, okay.
They're not like, they can just say, you know what? Nope, we'll pass on that. You can stay on the injured reserve, and that's the end of the discussion. So, and personally, and as no disrespect to Chris Brooks whatsoever, if I'm the Dolphins, I'm looking at Isaiah Wynn and saying, you know what? I prefer to have Isaiah Wynn back. I think we can get away with not having Chris Brooks. As incredible as he was early on, like the kid is a fighter. He is a physical back. He can push. He can shove. He can do all that stuff. You know who else can do that? Raheem Mostert. You know who else can do that? Devon Achon. For all the talk about how fast he is, this dude is surprisingly nimble and has an uncanny ability to break tackles. So I don't even want to say that, oh, Devon Achon can't be a physical player. He absolutely 100% can be a physical player. So I'm very impressed with everything this team has done so far. I want to just go over some of the stats that the Dolphins
Yeah.
had in that game. So Tyreek Hill, obviously, he's the big story there. Five catches for 157 yards and 2 touchdowns, 2 deep passes that were caught by Tyreek. Jaylen Waddle had 5 catches for 52. He did drop one, so that wasn't great. Devon Achon, three catches for 30 yards. Julian Hill, tight end, Julian Hill, 2 catches for 23 yards. Even Craycraft got in on this a little bit here. He was able to make 2 catches for 16 yards. Everybody on this team is doing something that makes a huge impact. And speaking of which, I think you briefly touched on Andrew Van Ginkel. I really want to go in on the whole Andrew Van Ginkel discussion. For all the talk that we had on Pulse of Fins Nation last week, saying how we needed to find somebody who could replace the productivity of Jalen Phillips, of somebody who could set the edge like Jalen Phillips can set the edge. I agree with that part. But if we were worried about somebody rushing the passer, there is no reason to worry about rushing the passer. I said it straight up. If you need to rush the passer, just leave it to Andrew Van Ginkel. He will make things happen. He wasn't credited with a sack in this game, although he was the first one to get to Sam Howell ultimately when Bradley Chubb was credited with the half a sack. So, but the only reason he got that half a sack was because Van Ginkel got there first. So we have to keep that in mind here. So he has been a disruptive force every single game that he has been put on the edge. There is not a single game that he's been rushing the passer that he has not made something incredible happen. So he's already playing himself out of Miami's price range at this point. I would not be surprised, Eric, and I don't know if you agree with me on this. I would not be surprised if some team looks at Andrew Van Ginkel and his productivity this season, and they're going to look at him like the Dolphins looked at Donnell Ellerbe when the Ravens won the Super Bowl that year in Ray Lewis's final season. They're going to see a dude who was a reserve player and has been having just an amazing ability to produce when given the rare opportunity. And they're going to say, we're going to give him a big contract. Andrew Van Ginkel, some team, somewhere, I wouldn't be surprised if it's the Eagles or the Chiefs, because that's what they do. They get good players and they get them for discounts because they're the Eagles and the Chiefs. I would not be surprised if some team gets Andrew Van Ginkel and signs him to a 5-year, however many $1 million contract and says, you are now our main top pass rusher. I want you to be our main edge player. And Dolphins may get a comp pick out of that. Who knows? It's not like they can afford to spend a lot on free agency as it is.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think Andrew Van Ginkel is going to be a guy that gets. I think the number that he gets this offseason is going to surprise a lot of people. And it's really just because of the fact that you look at Andrew Van Ginkel and you look at the production that he gives you in the limited time at edge rusher. I mean, this is a guy that's been moonlighting as an inside linebacker as well through the season. And we talk about his pass rushing acumen. He got a pick 6 today. So we talk about the guy and what he's able to do. This is a player that's not just a one-trick pony. This is a guy that can rush the passer, and for some reason, there's just these guys defensively that it just feels like they have a magnet for the ball. And Andrew Van Ginkel is just one of those guys. He's just every time you see the ball, you don't have to look much further to see Andrew Van Ginkel just somewhere in the general vicinity. He's a super heady player. He knows where to be at all times, and he's a tremendous pass rusher. That's not really what I'm worried about. Now what I'm worried about is, especially with the Jerome Baker injury, I'm not worried about replacing Phillips's, production. I'm more worried about, well, I kind of want to keep Andrew Van Ginkel on the edge, and now we're in a bind where the depth at inside linebacker is kind of suffering because you can't use Andrew Van Ginkel there as much. So that's kind of the one thing that I would be worried about coming out of this. But Andrew Van Ginkel has been whatever they re-signed him for this offseason, it wasn't enough. Because he's just been such a huge part of this defense. I can't say enough about Andrew Van Ginkel today.
Yeah, and even as much as we're talking about him being on the edge, the fact that he has gotten that versatility as an inside linebacker as well, that's going to help a lot with however long Jerome Baker is out. Now, to be fair, Duke Riley is probably going to get first look at a lot of these snaps. I'm sure they will throw in a lot of Van Ginkel in the inside at some point. However, Emanuel Ogbah got a sack today too. So it's not like we're just going to look at Ogbah and say, well, you don't match up to what Van Ginkel can do. Ogbah can play. We've already seen that Ogbah can play. And now that he's in the reserve role, even whenever he gets his opportunities, he plays well. There's not a single, I can't think of a single player right now on this team that has not made the most of whatever opportunities that they have been given, as rare as they sometimes might be. That includes the offensive lineman. That includes anybody on defense. Did you? I saw you briefly want to have a comment there. Is there somebody you thought of?
No, I just wanted to ask a question when it comes to Agba. I know that he makes a lot of money and he didn't play very much earlier in the season, but I'd almost suggest now isn't that kind of a positive now that we're getting Agba kind of fully like a fresh edge rusher coming off in relief of Phillips when you need the depth at most.
In a manner of speaking, I agree, and that's part of why I think so many people were saying that no, you need to keep Ogbah for this season. In hindsight, it looks like they were right, but that's still not going to stop me from saying Dolphins need to move on from him next season. We need to cut corners and we need to get some savings in somewhere. And it looks like, as much as it pains me to admit it, him and Jerome Baker are probably the easiest ones to get out from under, because you're going to have to save some money somewhere. Now, if there is a team out there that wants to trade for Ogbah and wants to trade for Baker, I am all for that. I'm 100% wanting to see if we can maybe get some assets for them, because they're not coming off theher contracts. These guys are going to be hanging around for a while otherwise. So I want to see if we can maybe get, even if it's like a 6th or 7th round pick for them. I would love to be able to see if we can do that. And they're going to be the way that the Dolphins are performing this season, there are going to be a lot of teams that are looking at these players and saying, you know what, there might be something worth salvaging there. So I'm hoping that some team out there is going to look at these two players and say, yeah, we're going to go ahead and just we're going to swipe them from you. The only one that I can definitely not see getting traded, and this is on offense, is Cedric Wilson. But even then, even if he hasn't been catching a lot of passes, I have to put respect on Cedric Wilson's name, because when he goes out there, even if he's not catching passes, he blocks. He blocks. And when wide receivers block, amazing things happen for the Dolphins offense. It is so, I remember back in the days of Adam Gase, we were so frustrated because so many of the players that we had, they were so bad at blocking as a wide receiver. They were awful at it. And it felt like no matter, every time we tried to do something, it was always predicated on somebody had to throw a block and they just did not do it. They failed at it so miserably. And now all of a sudden, whether it's because of Wes Welker being the wide receiver coach, whether it's just Mike McDaniel's scheme as a whole, whatever you want to call it, all of these players suddenly know how to block properly and they execute well. I can't think of anybody who, Robbie Chosen, I guess, that he would probably be the only one that I'm looking at and saying, you're not that great of a blocker as a wide receiver. Even Tyreek and Waddle are out there throwing blocks from time to time. So this whole team, when they're playing against a team that they're obviously better than, that's when you should get to see them at their strongest, obviously. You get to see them execute. You get to see them do everything the way that it's supposed to be designed to be. But now you're going to be facing a few teams coming up. It's not going to be it's not going to happen with the Titans, and it's not going to happen with the Jets, because those two are two bad teams. They're terrible. And Jeffrey Simmons, the Titan star defensive player, defensive lineman, he went out of the game. He was ruled out. So who knows? He may not even play next week.
I heard Derrick Henry got hurt too.
Did he get hurt too?
Yeah.
So again, this is going to be a game where the Dolphins are going to be favored by 100,000 points. So it's not going to be a Titans. It's going to be a win against the Titans. Going to be another win against the Jets, because once again, the Jets failed to score a touchdown on offense. In fact, I think they failed to score a touchdown, period. So Miami, at minimum, by the time we face another good football team, they're going to be 13-3. Or excuse me, 11-3. Yeah, 11-3. 13-3 is what we're aiming for. We're aiming for 13-3. But At minimum, they're going to be 11-3. So that's all that needs to happen. And I'm firmly confident that that's ultimately what's going to happen. We're going to get ready to wrap it up here real quick. Any final thoughts before we go?
My one big takeaway for this game here is the Dolphins winning the turnover battle. You know, I know
Gotta
it kind of
bring
gets
Ginkel
swept under
again.
the rug, 30-point win, but that's kind of the one thing that they've been consistently doing over the last few weeks. That's kind of kept some of these lesser opponents in games. I think back to like the Raiders game was closer than it should have been, and a lot of that was not winning the turnover battle, being sloppy. And the offense is just over the last couple of weeks, it's been more concise, it's been cleaner, and that's the biggest thing for this team is to continue to lay off of the turnovers. And ultimately, I think this team will get to where they want to go if they keep everything clean.
No, if they keep everything clean, there's not a team in the NFL that they can't beat, unless you're facing the Eagles, in which case they'll call 10 penalties on you and let the Eagles coast away with 0. But that's a different discussion for another day. We're going to go ahead and call it here. Everybody, thank you all so much for joining us. If you have not already done so, make sure you go to prizepicks.com, use that promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. And once again, make sure you're clicking on the links in the description below if you want to go ahead and get your Christmas orders in. Nintendo is always a good choice when you're going to be getting presents for your kids, or if you're just an old Nintendo fan who wants to relive some of your childhood, click on the links in the description below. Super Mario RPG available to order now, and also Super Mario Brothers Wonder. You'll get bonus items upon making your purchase, so make sure you click those links and get started. Now, that's going to be it for the show. We will see you all Wednesday for another Fins Nation, Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. for Pulse Fins Nation. Got plenty of content for you all on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.